President Obama gets mad and he lashes out, sick of some of the rhetoric coming from a certain opponent, and he fought back. Here he was earlier this afternoon.
For a while now, the main contribution of some of my friends on the other side of the aisle have made in the fight against ISIL is to criticize this administration and me for not using the phrase radical Islam. That's the key, they tell us. We can't beat ISIL unless we call them radical Islamists. What exactly would using this label accomplish? What exactly would it change? They know full well who the enemy is. So do the intelligence and law enforcement officers who spend countless hours disrupting plots and protecting all Americans, including politicians who tweet and appear on cable news shows. They know who the nature of the enemy is. So there's no magic to the phrase radical Islam. It's a political talking point. It's not a strategy. Groups like ISIL and Al-Qaeda want to make this war a war between Islam and America, or between Islam and the West. They want to claim that they are the true leaders of over 1 billion Muslims around the world who reject their crazy notions. They want us to validate them by implying that they speak for those billion-plus people, that they speak for Islam. That's their propaganda. That's how they recruit.
Okay, let's bring in our panel right now. Jerry McKinstry is here. Jerry's a managing director of the November Team, a Republican-leaning political consulting group run by good friends to the program, Bill O'Reilly and Jessica Proud. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Giancarlo Perasutti, I love to say the name. He's a former aide to President George H.W. Bush, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Dom, just one thing before we get into the substance. I think he's, you know how they sometimes have to pry the guys out of there after 8 years? I think he's like, just tell me when. I'm done. I want to get out of here.
Well, I think that it's, I don't want to use killing him, referring to the president, but instinctively he's dying, though, I believe, to take on Donald Trump. I mean, with every ounce of his being, mano a mano, it's between him and Trump. It's not even really about Hillary. It's about destroying Donald Trump.
You know, Giancarlo, I saw earlier today, you had Paul Ryan, pretty much unsolicited, giving a long statement as to why he doesn't think banning Muslims is a good tool here to protect America, and also be in keeping with who America is. And he went farther than just a 2-sentence soundbite like we know they have to. He went into detail of this. I get the idea that there is a lot of buyer's remorse among Republicans who said, what choice do I have? Now they're saying, I don't even want to get into tonight what happens or doesn't happen in Cleveland, but I don't think they want to be around this guy or even be in his area code. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong at all. And I think it has to do with unpredictability. It has to do with the fact that Donald Trump has not learned a blessed thing since he clinched the Republican nomination. And it's not just his rhetoric and his persona. The mechanics of his campaign aren't there either. I mean, by every measure, whether it's the number of staffers, whether it's the strategies that need to be deployed in swing states, it's just not there. We read the reports. I talk to friends of mine who say, you know, this is the emperor having no clothes when it comes to campaign infrastructure. So it'd be one thing if he was hot and heavy on the rhetoric and irresponsible, yet was bolstering or was amassing troops to launch a profound campaign in the fall, but he's not doing that either. So if you're a Donald Trump fan, I don't know what you're holding on to here in hopes of a victory in November.
And I got to tell you, Jerry, whether I would find it capitalizing on a tragedy or not, there was a window for Trump. If he stayed on message here instead of where he went. And by the way, you know, we're going to talk later on this hour to the Washington Post, who he's banned them from media coverage because of their interpretation. The New York Post had the same read on exactly what he said. You're implying the commander-in-chief was in league here with a terrorist attack. I've never never, and I said this, I'm repeating myself, I've never heard anyone say anything like this, let alone a guy who is the representative of your political party come November. He didn't have to go there, but he did.
He didn't have to go there so many times throughout this campaign. He seems to go there every day, every week, and I think his strategy is win the day, win the media day, and he doesn't take advice, it seems, from a lot of people around him, and he goes out and he does what has been successful for him so far. He'll say these extreme things, he'll say things that are offensive, and then guess what? Everybody covers it.
I got to say, though, we talked to a lot of more reasonable Republicans on this show. It's nice to have you.
Thanks, Andrew.
And I don't, as much as I respect the opinions of all of our Republican guests who come, I don't think that's where the majority, or maybe it's just the plurality, but where a large portion of the Republican electorate is right now. I mean, I've just moderated 2 debates between 4 congressional candidates on the Republican side from New York State. All of them are going with the Trump line. All of them are going with the populist line. And all of them are somewhat echoing conservative radio and Fox News. That's where a lot of voters are right now, and they're just not following the lead of the people that we've established on the party.
But I'm starting to hear, anecdotally at least, people saying, I don't like Obama either, but like I wouldn't go there. And how many times have there been that kind of a moment where I wouldn't have gone that far? Like if you don't like the question by Megyn Kelly, you don't go where he went with it. And a million other examples we can point to over the last year. My only point is, at some point, and there's 2 people left now, right? There's got to be some substance. Instead of self-congratulation, I don't care if you're the red meat base. You want to hear from this guy, okay, what are you going to do so we don't have another Orlando? What are you going to do? I didn't hear any of that.
I'm not sure I agree with you. I think there's a subset that wants that kind of substance, that wants that red meat, but I think a lot of people are just Obama bad, Hillary bad. And the only sin that Trump, I think, can commit in their eyes is not being able to beat Hillary. They want to win. They want to stop Hillary from losing.
I don't necessarily disagree with what you said. I think that percentage of the Republican electorate is probably smaller than you think it is, and I think that that's going to show itself in November when Donald Trump goes down to a historic defeat and Republicans lick their wounds and finally heed the advice that they've heard for the last 2, now 3 presidential elections, which it's no mystery what the party has to do to be successful.
Yep.
Everybody knows what has to happen. It's just we've had a lot of itches that we needed to scratch, and this is a big one. This sort of outsider, tear it all down, set fire to the building. All right, this is your shot. If that's what you believe as a Republican has to happen to your party, then this is your shot to prove that you're right. And I contend that it's going to be a massive failure.
Now, on the other side of the aisle, Dom, it was interesting. We didn't play it, and I don't think we're alone. Hillary also spoke today. Clearly, Obama overshadowed Hillary. If you're in Camp Hillary, and I thought Obama was good, regardless if you like it or not, his politics, you could tell the stuff had been eaten in. And we saw some of that last week, too. Where he went today, does that help her, or is there a risk that he's overshadowing her and will continue to overshadow her because, as you said, he's bitten this too long, and he's going to take on Trump, and he's not taking directives from anybody else here. He's going to let him have it because nobody can say in the wake of the worst mass shooting in America that you, the commander-in-chief, either knew about it or didn't care, and you're going to take it. At what point does that maybe harm the Democratic nominee in November, if at all?
I'm sure it's not hurting her at all, and I don't see it hurting her anytime soon. Whenever you have a president of your own party that's over the 50% threshold in terms of popularity, I'm sure Hillary Clinton doesn't mind taking a back seat. When Obama and Hillary Clinton, they're basically saying exactly the same thing on gun control. So why not let the popular president take on your fight and energize the base, which is what she needs at the same time?
Jerry, I'm going to ask you to get into the mind of Trump here, so be prepared to channel this. If you're Trump today and the president dedicated his time, by not mentioning you by name, but basically everybody in the free world knew who he was talking about, do you check it off as a good day that the president engaged you directly? Or if it was so scathing as he did, do you say, wait a minute here, I may have picked the wrong enemy. Now it's not just Hillary, now I've got everybody on me.
All right, putting my Donald Trump
Yes.
hat on. I think Donald Trump, he is so self-centered and loves seeing himself as the center of a media attention that he loves it. I mean, I think he considers that probably a victory for himself. I mean, he's playing by different sets of rules, and he has from the beginning, and they seem to be working for him. I think he's probably celebrating this.
Just one other point, though. I mean, that clip that you played of the president, I was hoping that we were going to get to react to that, because as a Republican, from start to finish, he said about 80 things that I disagreed strongly with. Namely, he set up the ultimate straw man argument of talking about how all Republicans want is for him to change the term that he uses for the bad guys. That's not the point, Mr. President. The point is that is a symptom of a much larger problem that you have with your foreign policy and your policy of fighting terrorism, which seems to be don't do what George W. Bush did, period, full stop. He can't even, my party can't even credibly push back on that because Trump won't engage. If the president had just mocked Donald Trump in that would have been one thing. But he actually gave a substantive argument. I happen to think it was very wrong. And yet Trump won't join that fight. That is the fight that Republicans need to join and say, Mr.
And I agree with you is, just so I get it, define your strategy against ISIS. That's what you would have liked Trump to say, right?
Well, sure, but I would have liked to take the opportunity for a Republican to listen to that speech that the president gave and say, Mr. President, here's where you're wrong on all the points that you just hit. And yet that's not going to happen with Donald Trump as our nominee.
Well, one of the conversations, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, I'm not sure it would have happened before Orlando, it might have, and that is the subject of guns, more specifically assault weapons. A moment of silence for the victims in Orlando. It got really noisy on Capitol Hill. That's as some Democrats walked out protesting what they called Republican inaction on the subject of gun control. Afterwards, they shouted down Speaker Ryan, demanding he bring a bill to the floor. The floor fight got nasty, but the question is, will it get anything done?